You're listening to the Deadly Uncle Podcast,
a safe space for deadly uncle conversations.
We will say
Monando.
Monando.
How about Aninchikwa?
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa. Yeah, why don't you let us know a little bit about yourself and we can go from there.
So negano maya kat tamskadno ga kyo to team tigno ko magan tigo kan to me ka wapa te me go ma nega music ro sego yo tsenek tigi upi go yan nêhiyawêwin dapat sihtan mana ngaskita sin ton mana mo pagas nêhiyawan maga miwi tinaya in tom tsego napiog bi which be swim to go ta igwam stegwan ma kai tuito nêhiyawêwin sta go I pasagona man to we maskusit man igwa michi to ge to timag no ko magan nagi iwichi wagmanak we pasagona ma we maskusit agma big skonan. So I want to introduce myself. Thanks, Wayne Jackson. I come from the Goodfish Lake First Nation, originally where I'm from. The stuff that I do, the work that I do, is a lot of it is with language revitalization, and I'm really glad, I'm really hopeful that to see our languages are made strong, they're made to be uplifted, to be revitalized, and for me, that's something I do, and I know there's a lot of other people that help along the way to do that kind of work. So hi.
So where do you work now, like doing this language revitalization work?
The main place I work at is we call it University in thaaヂehots'į, nistameyimâkanak, Blue Quills. We put a big title in the middle of the between University and Blue Quills. We could have just said University of Blue Quills, but it's been 50 years since this institution was taken over by, it was actually the first Indigenous owned institution in all of Canada. But it was 50 years that it was taken over by people from our communities around the surrounding area here where Blue Quills is. We're located right by St. Paul. But around here, all the Lakeland area, Treaty 6 East. So Whitefish Lake, Goodfish where I'm from. Stad Lake, Beaver Lake, Hart Lake, Agecoutay, Frog Lake, Cold Lake, and Saddle Lake. So those are the 7 owning and governing nations. But back then there was actually still going into the north, into the Athabascan district. There were actually Dene people here that were coming to school here, and they were part of that takeover. So I work here at Blue Quills, and to honor that big long word, University nêhiyawêwin nistameyimâkanak, Blue Quills, we give precedence to our ancestors, that the people that were here and took over this place, and also, like Orange Shirt just happened here not so long ago, also to remember there were people that didn't come home. There were people that didn't come home from these places. And there's actually people that suffered in these places. So that's the work I do right now. 50 years ago, we took this place over. Our ancestors did. I wasn't here, but our ancestors were. Our kokums, our musums, our uncles and aunts, and our relatives, our friends.
Yeah.
They took this place over, and ever since then, it's been a hotbed of language and culture revitalization. And initially started as a school for primary grades K to 9, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think they went off to regional school in St. Paul to finish. But then eventually they moved to expand to grade 12. 1976 was the first year that students graduated from here in Blue Quills. So anyways, started off with a language program for them, and then it morphed into adult programming. And eventually became a college in 1990. And then in 2012, one of our board members here, Carl Quinn, who's famous for Neepin and nêhiyawê singing, he kind of motioned that we should move towards being a university to be recognized, because we were conferring degrees. We were starting to confer our own degrees, and to do that, you need a Senate. And so our local 7 nations here created a Senate body of elders, and those people blessed the fact that we're doing conferring degrees to students that were graduating from our program. So anyways, to make a long story short, I'll try not to drag it too long. I'm here. That's why that's the work I do here. I do the work with the language revitalization. I've been here. I started in 2011.
Okay.
I did my master's program here at Blue Quills. I could have went the route. I have my Bachelor of Education. I did that at U of A. It's a good degree. It gives me recognition with the nêhiyawê institutions. But I didn't get as much as I could have if I would have came here at Blue Quills. I would have learned syllabics. I would have learned ceremony. I would have sat with the elders. With my B.Ed, I didn't do that. I went to the nêhiyawê, and it wasn't as. It gave me all these credentials. It gave me good pay finally. But I see people that come through this program now. They come through a 3-year Bachelor of Arts program. They go through all those things. Of course, the pandemic kind of threw a loop in the curve with everybody. So we couldn't sit with elders. We couldn't do ceremony. But now we're starting to do those things again. But anyways, I missed out on those things. And now people that go through our program, they can actually do a 2-year Bachelor of Education degree through the Aboriginal Teacher Training Education Program. So that those people do that to have a real rounded education. So they come through here and they learn all these good things, and then they take them to the nêhiyawê Institute and they get the certification. But anyways, that's the work I'm doing. I'm doing that. And the other work I do is also at CFW. I do some of the weekend language programming with nêhiyawêwin. I don't say Cree because Cree is not our word. Cree's from the east. The Oblates, the missionaries, the voyageurs, Coeur de Bois, those are the people that coined that term, le Cris. And it's really, is what they're saying, the little yellers. And that's not who we are. We're nêhiyaw. Nêhiyaw is who we define ourselves as. So, that's what I try and raise awareness about. Let's decolonize. Let's call ourselves back. All the other nations have done that. Anishinaabe are calling themselves Anishinaabe. Dene are no longer Chippewa. They're called the Dene. The Blackfoot, they call themselves by their own names. Siksika, Blood, Ghana, and Began. So that's the work I'm doing with CFW. I
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. How did you get into, these teachings? Why is it important to you as an Indigenous man to have this education and also to spread it amongst, all of our young men coming up?
thanks for that question. I guess it goes back to my schooling. I didn't go to a residential school, but I went to a provincial school system from grade 1 to grade 12. I did my day school. They call it play school back then. So it was play school in kindergarten. I did that. Then I was bused off the reserve to a little town called Ashmont here. And I did all my schooling pretty much there. We had an experience, I guess, in grade 8 where the principal came in and he offered, you guys should learn a little bit of your language. And boy, I was jacked. I said, right on. Yeah, that'd be good. Learn about culture, learn about our language, learn about syllabics. I'd seen them in the church. When we go to church, we'd see the little hymn books and their syllabics. But I used to actually read and write and learn our language. So the principal said, okay, whoever raises their hand, stay behind. The rest of you can go back to class. And there were 300 students at that time. And it was a mixture of nêhiyawê and Agecoutay and nêhiyawê. So a mixture of white and and Indigenous kids from the reserve, Saddle Lake and Goodfish were coming and being bused there. So there are about, maybe close to 200 students from Goodfish and Saddle Lake, and only 3 of us stayed behind. Only 3 of us out of those 300. Of course, I wouldn't expect the nêhiyawê to take the course, but nothing was ever done. Nothing. We never had any language throughout my whole schooling. And then I eventually went back to work there as a liaison worker. And the principal was really akin in the tune to what our people needed. Said, would you want to teach the language? And then, boy, I kind of got scared because I didn't have no teaching background at that time. Mm-hmm. But I thought back to that time, said, we didn't get that opportunity and we missed out. That was a few years back. So I said, it'd be good if these young people could learn the language a little bit, at least get a little bit, So I started that program without a degree. Did that for about 4 years. And then Lyle Olberg, the then Minister of Education, said he was going to make second languages mandatory. So now I thought, okay, well, I started my Bachelor of Education. I better go back and finish it, which I did. Like I said, I got that nêhiyawê degree, nêhiyawê credentials, and I came back and I actually got paid better than what I was doing. I was teaching pretty much 5 subjects at the time, 5 subjects, and I was getting paid like a TA salary, and it was like obviously no respect, no what do you would say today, revitalization and what's the word, reconciliation in that. There's no reconciliation to the fact that we were, even though we had a language experience, even though we had all these experiences, we have some abilities to teach, there was no reconciliation that we were just being paid piddly. But anyways, I got into this work. I thought I better learn, better get the language out to these people that are students. And it was, for me, it's always been there. It's always been dear. And actually, before I started teaching the language, I told my boss that I don't have any language skill background, but I should take a course. And I actually came here. Blue Quills, the first course that I took, and the only course before my master's. I took the language program here, and it really opened my eyes. When I first opened that book, words were leaping out at me that I hadn't heard in a long time. Things like thaaၤehots'ĩ is a cross, and that took me back to my grandfather. He used to make gravestones, and I used to spend time with him in the summer erecting those things for deceased people, for family and friends. And for me, that thing just hit me, and it made me realize, I need to do this. And I got to share a little story here. A former student here at Blue Quills here, just not too long ago, they texted me on my phone and got me up early out of bed. And I looked at, what is this? She said, I want to text you someday. She said, I had a dream. I had a dream about you, and I had a dream about late Vincent Steinhauer. Vince Steiner was instrumental. His family was also instrumental in the takeover in 1970. His dad was the actual first director of the native Blue Quills here back in the 70s. And eventually he became one of the presidents of Blue Quills. And in that dream, Vince has since passed on. In 2019, he passed on. But in that dream she said Vince was in the gymnasium, just like we do here every time we have orientation with the students. And I guess Vince was talking and he was singing, and he stopped in the middle of the song, according to her dream. And he spoke to me in that dream. You need to teach the language and keep doing it forever. That's your goal in life. Then he started singing that song again. And then she woke up, and then that's when she texted me. It's like, if anything, that's reaffirmation for me that, I'm in the right place in the right time. Sometimes people ask me to run for council back home, but I have no desire, no want to do any of that stuff. For me, this is more important. Revitalization. And for me, it's identity. Nêhiyawêwin, we're the nêhiyaw people. It's how we make our nation. We're going to make our nation strong again. If they can go back and identify with who they are. For me, that grade 1 to 12 experience, I was colonizing my thought. Yeah. That's all it was. All the curriculum was feeding me was that the white ways are good, and that nêhiyawês are bad. All we ever saw in the curriculum was bad things, pretty much. The real rebellions, the Frog Lake Massacre, Almighty Voice. Those are all the things we saw in the history books about us. Never anything about treaty. Never anything about who we were as original peoples. Here, all this. There was an ice age. Then there was a royal proclamation, and then there was the settlement, and that's it. Never anything about our contributions to Canada, our contributions to Western Canada, our contributions to treaty. And the reason why we even exist as a country right now is because of treaty, what was struck in between our ancestors and the settlers that came here. So anyways, for me, we go back to that. There's 5 things they say we need as to identify to be strong nations and to bargain within an international framework. We need land, which we have. We need culture. We have lots of that. We have jigging. We have fiddling. We have powwow. We have round dances, ceremony. We need governance. We got lots of governance, and we have a system right now. A little flawed to my liking. It's according to the Indian Act, which I don't like. So we have that, and people. We have people. So everywhere you go throughout 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 across the land, we have people. And then that last thing, we need language. Without language, we just become an ethnicity. We're the original people here. If we lose our language, we can't go back to another country, like what the late Agnes Bull said here a long time ago. We can't go back to a foreign country and ask someone to give us back our language. If we lose it, we lose it here. So for me, that's the alarm bells are ringing all the time. So, I love what I do. I love what I'm doing as a revitalist, as a person who's trying to uplift and raise our language profile. So that's what I'm going to do pretty much till nothing comes out of this mouth here in terms of breath.
Well, Wayne, I met you through music, actually. And you have even brought in this revitalization into that area of your life as well, into your music. And I mean, we did a Christmas song together, and that was an interesting translation of I wish you a Merry Christmas. But I mean, you've been talking about doing other music like that as well. Is that still something you're interested in doing? Because I think, for me, I think that that's a good way for younger people to kind of identify with it, is if they hear those melodies, and then they can identify the words with melodies. And for me, it would make me remember more, I think.
Absolutely. Music is one of the best ways to learn language, and we use it a lot here. Sometimes I'll use for example, the word 100.
Help
kind
me.
of hard, eh? Kind of hard. It's a big long word. Yeah, pretty close. So you're saying 10 times 10. Right on. Good try. How I make students remember that is my daughter, one of my daughters, when they were small, they used to watch a show called It's Itsy Bitsy Time. I don't know if you guys know that show.
Yeah.
There's a little tune on there. It's itsy bitsy time. It's itsy bitsy time. It's itsy bitsy. So I heard that tune when they were watching the show, and I thought, I was teaching at the time. I thought, okay, and I got to the numbers part, and I said, well, this is a big long number. Okay, let's use that song. So I even use that with my students here at Blue Quills. They've been giving me a spelling test lately, and we do 100 words. Yeah. So when I get to that 100 words, I go like this. So they sing the song to me, and that's how they remember. So song really helps a lot, when you're learning a language. And for babies, things like Baba Black Sheep, what's that farmer song there? I mean, those songs have been translated already. Those have been translated. So use those for our babies, even for new learners. Song plays a big part in learning. And I had one person here who was ceremonialist, Leo McGilvery, but he's a drummer. He's pretty famous with ceremonial songs. He said, I had problems with my son. Although he was raised in the language somewhat, he didn't speak it. So I took him to ceremony. And ceremonies where they sing a lot of songs and they speak a lot of language. And he said eventually his son was getting to speak more and more of the language as he attended more ceremony. So that ceremony song and those things actually really, it helps to coalesce make adheres toward those things that students want to, though anybody that wants to learn the language, song and goes with that. But yeah, you asked me about it music-wise. Yeah, I kind of pushed myself musically into the contemporary field, and had little success, not a whole lot, but yeah. I like performing. I like doing the music. I like playing on my guitar now and then. I don't do as much anymore because I kind of lost that passion. But if anything I want to do, I did start actually taking some contemporary songs and translating them. And I got a whole bunch already, but I'm going to keep it underground for now until I eventually get a grant or something. And then I'm just so busy right now. I'm so busy. I teach four classes a week here, the work I do, and then I do stuff at CSW, and then I go home. I actually stay within the Blue Quills area here. Like I live in Goodfish during the week, and then I go home to my family in Edmonton, and also my mom is there. My nêhiyawê is there, so I kind of take care, look after her. So lots on my plate. Yeah. But music is one of my passions also. So eventually, one day, hopefully, someone, I pray that I'll release something music-wise, and it'll be language. It'll be definitely language.
Oh yeah, I could so see that. No, it's really wonderful. I remember seeing you perform as well on the trail, and us being at different events. And you know, one of the things that people talk about, or one of the things that I've heard some of our elders talk about, is how there's certain like stories and ceremonies and stuff that are in the Cree language that you can't really I guess say in the English language. Can you talk to us a little bit about those things? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, it happens all the time. There's stuff that so I got a bunch of books. I got a bunch of, these are stories of Sarah Whitecalf. You know, these are part of the curriculum I teach at Blue Quills. But Frida Hennekew, prominent writer at Saskatchewan, who's since passed on, but she went around collecting stories in the 80s and 90s. So there's one of her books. Here's another one. This one's actually local. Their example showed me the way. This lady's originally from Saddle Lake, but she was married to this man in Musquetees. So what happens often, and I've seen it, sometimes people ask, and I see it all the time on my, there's a Cree group, they're called nêhiyawêwin word of the day, and people ask, what's this, what's that, and then they get like various interpretations, and there's just no one simple way to interpret stuff. And for us as nêhiyaw, you know, we try to use, juxtaposition of our languages. English is noun based. If you go through it, you know, the man saw the bird, you know, two important things, man, bird. Whereas us as nêhiyawê, napio, yeah, is important. Agecoutay mat, bisisa. That kitap mio, kitap, look at is more important. And so sometimes people ask things, and how do you translate this and that? It can happen. It can work where you're translating stuff that, because I've done some translations for some organizations, and sometimes the things they ask, it's aye man, it's like this thing we're on right now. We call it thaaၤehots'ĩ, this screen. So we call a TV or a screen or anything like that thaaၤehots'ĩ, and we translate that, it's like shadows, an implement with shadows. Mm-hmm. I don't know why it's translated that way, but that's exactly what we use. thaaၤehots'ĩ, or nistameyimâkanak. Nistameyimâkanak. The môtsagan, like you heard it, thaaၤehots'ĩ, nistameyimâkanak. Nistawe is like echoes. So the radio is an implement that produces echoes, sound. Oh, okay. So our languages are very verb based. As pretty much any Algonquin language is verb based. So the juxtaposition of the way our languages work is based on that thing. So it's also a worldview. It's also the way we look at things. There's certain things like in ceremony, they're alive. Like mitos is alive, tree. Asini is alive. We use it in ceremony. Uswagan, which we use in one of our sacred ceremonies. Those things are alive. So sometimes it's difficult, sometimes it's hard, but we do attempt to make translations, and we attempt to say things. But, you know, languages are dynamic. So our we can translate stuff, but it's not going to be exactly the way
Mm.
it's worded in English.
Yeah.
It's almost the way you grow up too, hey? Like your experiences with the elders, and that will change the sound of a word, the meaning of a word, and yeah, and I think like there's a connection between some of the other indigenous languages around the world where they say you have to literally grow up that way to understand some of the words, and even just be a part of the land and what's around you to understand that. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's very interesting. And some of the elders talk about our accents too, being that our language was very fast. It was very, and they're saying that it was much more intelligent than English, and that's why we had to slow ourselves down to speak this language, which a lot of non-indigenous people made fun of indigenous people, but actually was us that had to slow ourselves down to speak this English language. And so just very interesting.
Yeah, just a little bit story on that. Yeah, we do have regional variances of nêhiyawêwin. So here in Treaty 6, you have Musquetees, you have Saddle Lake, and then you have people to the west, the other nations there. And then to the east here, most of us are nêhiyaw language speakers, most of our reserves anyways. And then when you get to Treaty 8, Pitos, already is getting to sound different. Even from my community, Goodfish to Saddle Lake, it's like a 30-minute drive. Already there's slight variances to the language already right there.
Mm.
We say in Goodfish, we like the word yes, we say iha, iha.
Yeah.
In Saddle Lake, they say eha, eha.
Uh-huh.
That e is slightly softened with the Saddle Lake and Musquetees. They'll say that same thing, eha. When you get to Treaty 8, there is no iha. There's ihi. For them, it's ihi. And in Treaty 8, they tend to speak faster. They speak faster than we do down here in Treaty 6. Musquetees, they talk really, not the Agecoutay peaks, they talk really in a very slow manner. I don't know, because maybe it's because more sedentary on the plains. I don't know. But
Could have been with
They're
me.
colder up north, so they're like, hurry up.
here's a story. This is Bill Seaweed Pigum. He's from Treaty 8. I think he's from, I forget which nation they're in Treaty 8. He said, there's a reason why you talk fast. It's darn cold. We want to get inside.
Makes sense.
But yeah, there's variances to the languages. There, I mean, right here in Alberta, we have really only one dialect. It's Y. Whether you're in Treaty 6 or 8, it's also this. It's the same dialect, but there's variances to regional variances to the way it's spoken. They speak a little faster up north. We speak a little slower down south, and the enunciation. There's even some words like we say in Goodfish for fencing, waskangion. They say in Lake Wehquengion.
Mm.
Other places say mingani, man gun. They'll say for a fence. So, uh, and when our students come together here at Blue Quills, sometimes they're from other treaty areas.
Yeah.
They bring in a different regional variance, and then sometimes they get into conflict. And I say, "Wait, squat. Let's celebrate our differences. You guys might say it that way. These guys say it that way. So don't say their way is wrong. Let's celebrate our differences and welcome that there's a variance to the language. So
Yeah.
that happens.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. No, this has been great to learn about all the language you're doing there. So with the thing with Blue Quills is like you're there and it was once a residential school, and do you guys feel any kind of way in there, or has it being retaken back by the people of the area? Has that helped with the healing of the whole area, I guess, the building and whatever else?
There's people that are healed, that have been healed coming here.
Yeah.
Myself, for instance, I first came here in 1988 through the University College Transfer Program. And back then I was very much colonized nêhiyaw. I was very colonized in my thinking. We were kind of raised up to think that, ceremony is bad. Following the Indian way, it was called back then, was bad. So for me, coming here, it opened my eyes. I opened to see that, oh, that's not what we were told about the nêhiyawêwin and about the nêhiyawê. And I began to expand my thought, and the things they teach here, like nuxełhot'įne, kindness, nistameyimâkanak, helping one another, nuxełhot'įne, to be kind, to share, to be clean, kanatsун, they also teach about. So those are the TP teachings that kind of base who we are as nêhiyaw people. And these are things that were pretty much coinciding with what was being taught as a Christian. So for me, that healing came about. But there's people that have come through here when this place was an institution run by the oblates, and they still will not come in this building. We had a guest yesterday at one of our classes from who came online. She came to we had a traditional powwow here this spring. She came to the powwow. She passed by the school, but she said, I won't go in there. I won't go in there just now. Not yet. There was stuff done to me, stuff that I still have to heal from. But hopefully she'll find her way, and I'm sure she will. She's a very strong nêhiyaw woman. She's actually a teepee maker, and we're hoping to invite her here for one of our courses for spring. That's the thing I love about Blue Quills. Land-based learning goes along with everything else. But anyways, we had one instructor here a few years back. He had to be in the next building, the trades building we call it. It's built in 1985, prior to this being the residential school. Anyways, but anyways, he could never come in the building. And there's still people during our cultural camp here in May. I had some Dene ladies come in. They were touring the place, and they sat outside my office, and they lamented. They said, why isn't this place bulldozed down? We were abused here, she said. I can't bring myself right now to forgive anybody. I said, I could empathize with her. If things like that were done to me, I would probably have those same feelings. But I told her, some people are healing from it, and some people are using this place to actually come out of that frame of mind, and restoring, revitalization, and reconciling what they are as nêhiyaw people. So big juxtaposition happening here with our people. But anyways, one of our elders also is one of the instructors here, and he was actually a resident here in the 1950s and 60s. But he's also one of our instructors, and he's actually I really look up to him. His name is Louis Lapata. He still skates. He still plays hockey. He's 78 years old.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And he's actually teaching our Vizette course,
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Solid elders, man.
Solid man. I just have a lot of respect for that person, that individual. So, healing happens. Healing happens. You come to this place and healing will happen.
Well, that's
if you open your mind.
That's kind of what we're trying to do, is just open the conversation for men to be able to talk about this kind of thing, about how they're feeling, and especially with like the inner city and how we live in Edmonton, and there's not a lot of programming for men to help them start to heal and maybe eventually get to a Blue Quills, right? Like there's no place, it seems, for them to start in the city where they don't have to go somewhere else to be introduced into their culture, to their language, and that type of thing. And that's the type of thing we're trying to bring awareness to try and keep that healing going for our people, right?
Yeah, like one of the things that we're asking a lot of our guests, because our guests we're picking are usually people that are working in the community and that are doing the things that you're doing. And one of the questions we're asking is, how important do you think it is for us as Indigenous people to have a place to pray within every major city across Canada, like here in Edmonton? If you look at like a place like Palm Acres, it would be really nice to have something like that was a non-treatment center for Indigenous people to pray, to have ceremonies, to have sweats, almost like, I guess you would call like a church or something, or somewhere for us to pray. You know, how important do you think that is that for Indigenous people?
So, first of all, I want to say I really appreciate what you guys are doing. There's not enough talk about men's healing, you know. There's lots about Indigenous women, and I really appreciate that. And they need to go forth and do a lot of those good things, but not enough is done for our men. I was just thinking about some of the people that I've grown up with, you know, friends, families, associates, you know, they're gone. They're gone. Either through addiction, through suicide, through all these things that beset our communities, you know. And I'm not just saying our First Nations communities, but also our people who live in the cities, people who live in our urban areas. They're hurting too. These were people that I grew up and loved, you know. They're gone now, and they could have been a contributing person to our communities had maybe they'd been directed in the right way earlier in life, or even later in life if they had that opportunity. So I really appreciate what you guys are doing. The one thing I'm currently working on right now is I'm forming a society hopefully to be within Edmonton. We're planning to create a space for immersion.
Oh,
and we really want to target our babies, our kids.
beautiful.
And where they come into the building, that's the first thing they hear, and that's the last thing they hear, and that's all they hear all day. So for me, that healing will take place if we re-identify with who we are as nêhiyawê. And it'd be nice not just for nêhiyawê, but eventually all the other languages. I know at one meeting I went to during the Indigenous language legislation in Edmonton, one of the Nakota ladies was complaining about, you know, it's always Cree, Cree, Cree. And it is, and it really is. We're very Cree-centric with some. Our numbers, you know, our numbers warranted. We're just everywhere. Treaty 6, Treaty 8, all the reserves, mostly nêhiyawê. So I don't begrudge what she said. I can understand what she's saying, but also for their languages to also be supported, Nakota to be supported, Anishinaabe to be supported, Tsuut'ina, Blackfoot, all those other languages, Michif. Sometimes I forget Michif a lot. You know, there's actually a bunch of speakers within that language base. So for us, that healing is going to take place if we get back to our culture and our language. And for me, that was healing. That was really an eye-opening thing for myself. It made me stronger as a nêhiyawê person to come back to my language and culture. And I hope whoever's listening to your program here, you know, we can avoid things like what's happening with our men. You know, with all our people, but, you know, especially our men. You know, I want to reach out to them too. You know, I'm on Facebook. You can always look for me if you need to talk to someone. You know, there's a means and ways of going about it. And we have elders. We have urban elders, a lot of urban elders who are willing. Francis Wisujak, one of them. You know, there's many out there right now. But that's what I wanted to commend you guys on the stuff you guys are doing here towards men's health, men's mental health, and it's a lacking area. We don't talk about maybe I don't know because we're oriented a little different, wired a little different as nêhiyawê, as men. I don't know, but it would be good to see more programming like that.
Yeah. You know, I think it's just growing up. We didn't see those things, and you know, most of our influences that we had that came from the residential schools didn't really know how to express themselves in a healthy way with masculinity. It was always like the masculinity that I learned from my uncles were like, if you can't get over it, then let's get over it this way with our fists and stuff, or through anger, right? It's like, so you know, I think that we have to take our masculinity back, but in a healthy way. You know, when we talk passionately, a lot of times it's being taken as toxic masculinity. And I think that, you know, it's time for us to have a safe space to be able to express that between men. You know, it's really important. You know,
There's things like that, you know, growing up like that. Nistanan. We never got hugs. We never got kisses. So they're only expressing what they were given as children. And so I kind of had to shift that thought. I told my kids I loved them. I kissed my kids. I hugged my kids. I read them stories. These were things that were bereft me growing up. So, yeah, and plus I didn't grow up in a household with a male. My Muslim was my only male person I looked up to, and he passed away when I was about 16. But he had gotten sick prior to that. But I really looked up to him. He was one of the persons that I think about, his life. He went to residential school here in Blue Quills, but not the Blue Quills here, but the original one in Saddle Lake. Mm-hmm. And he lost his parents when he was young, both his parents. He had 10 children. 9 of those children died either young or in childhood. Mm-hmm. And so only my mother was left, and she bore him some children. So we grew up with him. He's the person we looked up to. And despite all that, he was a comical, humorous person. Despite all that, despite everything that he went through in his life, like, wow, what? I only learned about this now that he lost all these kids, and he went to residential school, and here he was. He was a humorous man. He would do all these comical things, around the house and stuff, and in public, he wasn't shy. I grew up shy, but he didn't. Yeah.
Oh, man. I think that's a great thing about humor, though, is that helps us all heal as well, right? And yes. I think we all have a pretty deadly sense of humor.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think it's a part of our healing, for sure.
Absolutely.
Part of our self-defense, our healing. And yeah, for sure. 100%.
I got a little story to tell you guys about one of my buddies here.
All right.
Ferlin McGilvery. He's they call him Choppers back in Saddle Lake. People that know him, they call him Choppers. I don't know for what reason they ever called him Choppers. But anyways, he was teaching here at the program. And there was this white woman that took the program, the language program. And actually I was telling her, I was reminding her of this yesterday. And they used to tease her, that movie Dances with Wolves.
Yeah.
Stands with a fist. That's what he would call her in our language. How are you doing? But of course, she didn't know this at first. Oh, yeah, she would say. Then she asked someone, what does that mean? Oh, he's insulting me. So anyways, I took her, I know she was a photographer, so I took her I asked her to do some photo shoots for myself for the music and stuff. And so we got out there and we got to talk, and she's saying there was some dragonflies flying around, and they're called thaaၤehots'į. They're, which you can translate as the flying, buzzing insect. And that's what you can call helicopters too. Okay. So she got to learn that word. She learned that word from me. So anyways, Ferlin happened to be in town of St. Paul. He pulls up to a red light with his dad, his late dad. So he's there waiting. Who pulls up beside him? Tanya. She pulls up beside him. So he pulls down his window, and of course he's going to tease her. That's the guy that can how stands with a fist. So she turns and looks at him. Moinanto, thaaၤehots'į. I'm okay, Choppers. Oh, and his dad sat in between us, and he heard all this. He said, "Holy smokes, who is that? Why she spikes? Is that a white woman?" He didn't realize she was taking the language program, but yeah, that's our humor. That's our humor as nêhiyaw people.
Oh, totally.
It's healing. It's healing.
It is our humor. I remember being in the sweat, one of my first sweats that I was ever in, and there was a white lady that was invited as well, and so we were all placed where we were supposed to be, and so they were bringing in the rocks, right? Mm-hmm. And the elder was saying, "Pray to the grandfathers, pray to the grandfathers as they come in," and so they finally bring the rocks in, and she's like, "Excuse me." She kind of stops the sweat, and he's like, "Yeah," and she's like, "Which one of you is the grandfather?" Yeah. So we all laughed and we told her what was going on, but it's a part of the humor. I'm sure a lot of people tell that story that we're in that sweat, but we were laughing pretty hard.
Right on. Right on.
Well, that was awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wayne. You know, like it's if there was ever a deadly uncle, you're one of the deadly uncles that we're happy to have you on this podcast. And you know, that's what this is about celebrating. It's about men celebrating other men and lifting other men up. And I believe that with you revitalizing our language, you're one of the most important people, because you are teaching the teachers, the next ones that will share this with the next generation.
Yeah, and hopefully if anybody watches this, you may inspire them to learn the nêhiyawê language as well.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there you go. That's the important thing.
And not just nêhiyaw and other languages. Let's also celebrate our diversity.
That's right. We don't want that lady that was worried about the Nakota language to comment underneath. So
She'll come look for you.
well, is there anything else you want to share with us before we let you go?
No, I just want to say thaaၤehots'ĩ, which means persevere, keep trying. You know, what you're doing, lovely work. I really support it and I'll endorse it wherever I can.
Awesome.
Hi.
So much, brother. Hi.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Okay.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Hi. Smaga. Yep.
Hi.
You're listening to the Deadly Uncle Podcast.
A safe space for deadly uncle conversations.